And what was fascinating, being in Alabama, the cradle of the civil rights movement, was when you talk to people who say that they fear, quote unquote, illegals, it was mostly because they've never met one. They've actually never gotten face-to-face contact with somebody who is. And once they do, what was fascinating was that then they start realizing that what they fear is actually not me and not us. Something else is going on. In being in Alabama, I actually got a chance to be at the 16th Street Baptist Church, where Dr. King and Fred Shuttlesworth and a lot of the civil rights leaders organized back in the 60s. And I interviewed a guy named U.W. Clement, who was the first African-American judge appointed to the federal court in the state of Alabama. He said that this Alabama law was mistaken, and then he said that in light of that Alabama law, the Hispanic man, I quote, is the new Negro in the state of Alabama. The power of listening to this African-American civil rights leader who would march with Dr. King, connect immigrant rights to civil rights, was so powerful. And it's exactly the kind of message that we need to be thinking about. Because really at the heart of all the anxiety about illegals and about illegal aliens is really a changing America. I went to Iowa a few weeks ago because, again, I'm crazy, where I spent a few days talking to Iowans, talking about immigration. Like the rest of the country, Iowa looks different than it did 10 years ago. Listen to the statistics. Though Iowa's white population increased by nearly 2% in the past decade, that's no match for the growth of the minority groups. African Americans are up 44%, Asians 45%, Latinos 84%. And what's happening in Iowa is happening all across the country in an unprecedented and culture-shifting American makeover. Whites are a shrinking share of the US population. Slightly over a third of Americans belong to minority groups. What's more, the children of African Americans, Latino Americans, and Asian Americans make up nearly half of America's children. Every 30 seconds, a Latino in our country turns 18 years old. Let me repeat that. Every 30 seconds, a Latino in America turns 18 years old. And there's a good chance that that new eligible voter is a first-generation American born to immigrant parents. Many of the parents have their papers, many of them do not. But this transformation goes beyond race and immigration. What it really is that as our country's minority population continually grows and becomes even more visible, this demographic makeover is about the increasing role of people who we consider to be the other: blacks, Latinos, Asians, gays, immigrants. The other in American life in the age of Obama. In 21st century American politics, diversity is destiny. To all the politicians in this room who are playing political football with our lives, Democrats and Republicans, in 21st century American politics, diversity is destiny. I grew up at a time in which diversity wasn't a mere buzzword, but an inevitable reality. I look Asian. I have a Latino-sounding name. You can't get any more Latino than José Antonio Vargas. I came out as gay in high school. In college, I majored in political science and African American studies. And I'm an undocumented immigrant. Beat that with a stick. But instead of feeling like a minority, instead of feeling like some illegal alien that some people call me, I actually feel like I'm a part of a majority. I constitute the majority of one. How each of us in this room can take charge of our own lives. I took charge of my own life by telling the truth, because the only way to solve a problem is to tell the truth about it. We constantly talk about immigration and reform in the context of what it means for people like me who are here without papers. We pretend that immigrants are the only people who are impacted by this issue. That's not the truth. Most Americans reap some benefit or pay some cost for the cracks in our system. We need to begin a conversation about the innumerable ways in which we all profit from our broken immigration system. We need to be honest about the price of low-cost labor. How much would your hamburgers actually cost if you had to pay for the lettuce and tomatoes in it? Right? We need to be honest and fair to educators across the country who are tasked to teach each student, regardless of immigration status. We in the media, which I'm a part of, need to do a better job explaining exactly how immigration works and why it works the way that it does. Why is it that a German chemical engineer can obtain an H-1B visa to work here temporarily and then be sponsored for permanent residency, but there isn't a work visa category for a Honduran who wants to come here to work on a hotel's housekeeping staff? We need to talk with as much passion and knowledge about enforcing our laws and securing our border as we do about honoring the immigrant tradition of a country that's been built and replenished by immigrants from all corners of the world. We are a country founded in protests. We are a country founded in protests. We are a country that for centuries have welcomed immigrants from all parts of the world. And what we really need to do, more than anything else, is broaden the conversation. May it be in our own dinner tables or virtual water coolers. A friend recently said to me that I'm an uncomfortable conversation. I am. I'm a walking, awkward, uncomfortable conversation. But guess what? We need to be having these awkward, uncomfortable conversations in each of our lives. When was the last time you actually called out a coworker or a friend or a relative over dinner when they refer to somebody as illegal? No human being is illegal. Never mind that as a grammarian, illegal is an adjective and not a noun. And if we want to tell the truth about immigration, then we need to begin by admitting the fact that immigration isn't just about people like me, the 11 million people who are undocumented in this country. It's actually about the larger us, the 310 million Americans in this country. I don't know if you can feel it. I just got back from Iowa and New Hampshire. I'm headed to South Carolina and Florida for the primaries there. With the level of discourse happening in our country, I don't know if you can feel it, but history is cracking right in front of your eyes. The very question of who an American is and what an American looks like, the question of how we define American, is coming face to face with a demographically changing America. America is no longer just black or white. America is black and white and brown and yellow and gay and straight. Most recently, I was in Washington, D.C., taking a very late walk around the new Martin Luther King Memorial. And if you haven't been, next time you're in D.C., please check it out. I lived in D.C. for 5 years as a reporter for the Washington Post. And what was so jarring to me and shocking to me was how many powerless people there were or there are in such a powerful city. I couldn't understand why that was. And I couldn't connect the dots back then. Why people, Americans of all backgrounds, with or without papers, were being treated the way that they were. We all know that our politics is broken. We all know that. But in the history of this country and in the history of the world, change has always come from groups of people like us, and making sure that we raise the level of consciousness that all of us are connected. And the quote that I thought a lot about when I was walking around the memorial, which I think is really fitting for the new demographic makeover that we're having, is this. Martin Luther King said, "History will record that the greatest tragedy in this period of social transition is not the strident clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people." This is not a time to be silent. All people must speak. I and the 11 million undocumented people around this country, 250,000 of whom are right here in San Diego County, we need your voices and we need your help. Thank you very much for having me here. Thanks. Thank you.
Coming to the stage, BK.